Hello, guys. This is Sanjar, and this project is Text-to-SQL. So, a lot of you saw my post about the Text-to-SQL from IBM video that I did, and I took it a little bit further. So I was like, let me engineer something really quick and see if I can try to make this much more fun and much more, interesting to kind of share with the rest of you people. So I was like, let me try to throw something out there. So what I did is that I actually did a really quick project. So you can see here this is actually a text to SQL kind of like an architecture. So what happens here is user asks a question. The Flask web app that we have is a web interface. We're not going to deal with that, but I just put it right there if you want to test it out. And this is actually, if you want like a really detailed walkthrough, this is part of the AI systems engineer course that we have. So please reach out to me and I can give more information about that. But like I don't share throughout these demos, you can see me doing this stuff, but I don't share the whole code. But you can see, you can just take a screenshot of this diagram and try to recreate it yourself. So here I am, I'm making it as a user request. That request goes to Ollama AI model. And then basically when the AI model, what it does is that it actually connects to my SQL database. And then what happens is that MySQL database, basically the AI model puts the query to the MySQL database, and then the answer comes back actually to the Ollama generated SQL right here, it says, and then basically it gets, the answer gets back to Ollama, and then Ollama basically answers the request, right? So if we go back here and if we take a look at the architecture, transform natural language questions into SQL queries using AI-powered language models. So if I scroll down, I can see here this project demonstrates a text-to-SQL system that converts natural language questions into executable SQL queries using Ollama, local AI language model. I've shared a lot of posts about Ollama, MySQL, Flask, Docker, and Adminer. In case, just by the way, if you take a look here, you can see it's actually Docker Compose, and there's actually a couple of services. Again, I'm not going to put a Kubernetes cluster. A lot of you might be like, why is this not a Kubernetes? Well, if you ever want to do Kubernetes, you can just take this and refactor it and make it to the K8s environment you have. But since I'm not running production, Docker Compose is just perfect, right? So I don't have to deal with a lot of headache. So what I did is that I have a couple of services. Excuse me. So I have a couple of services here. Ollama, MySQL. Then I have a service adminer, and then I have text to SQL app, and then a couple of volumes and networking. So if we go back to the README really quick, and then what I wanted to show is that something really interesting. So if I go back down, text to SQL, there we go. So these are basically kind of queries that we can do. So normally what we would do is that if we're working with the databases, usually we do like, okay, select everything from table, so and so on, so on and so forth, right? So usually there's like different types of SQL queries we do, or there's non-SQL queries that you do, or you use something Splunk and then you try to do like SPL search, the Splunk uses the query language that's used by Splunk when you query logs. So anything that, basically like that. But in this case, what I'm doing here is very interesting. I'm just putting up who has the highest salary. And then what does Ollama does is that it throws that query to the MySQL database that I have, the test database, then it defines the information and then sends it back to me a pure answer. It doesn't, when I do this kind of like a query, show employees with greater salary than 70,000, blah, 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 all these different queries, it doesn't give me the funny thing is like it doesn't give me the query to run. So it's actually doing the thing for me. So if you think about it at the system level, this is kind of like a AI agent, right? So this is kind of like a text to SQL AI agent. So yeah, go ahead and try to, use it as a, if you work in a corporation where let's say you need a small assistant to your PostgreSQL or like a Aurora database in AWS. Something to consider is, you can start with text to SQL. Don't as always I say, like, I give advice for systems engineers like myself, start very small, right? Don't go something crazy over engineering and then you're stuck. Don't do that. With the 10 years of experience in this space, especially building a lot of systems for like Fortune 100, Fortune 500 companies, I've learned a lot from my mentors. And number one thing I learned, don't over engineer. Don't make the life of another engineer just miserable. Just do something very simple. I worked with a brilliant engineers. I worked with one of the top level engineers, and one thing I learned is just don't over engineer. Start very small, and that's part of the reason you guys been seeing me putting Docker Compose. You might be like, why this guy's been using Docker Compose? Yes, there's a lot of fancy people that use Kubernetes or Minikube or something like that, and I'm gonna do that too. Yes, I will. But for now, what we want to focus on is the content. As long as we get to understanding, as long as we understand the concepts, that's what it matters. Again, text to SQL, use it, don't abuse it, and so create some kind of like a small AI agent and just make just build some fun stuff with it. Thanks, guys, and I'll see you at the next video.